Economic growth. 64 languages. Gross domestic product real growth rates. 1990, 1998 and 1990, 2006, in selected countries. Rate of change of gross domestic product. World and Organization for Economic Co-operation and Development, since 1961. Economic growth can be defined as the increase or improvement in the inflation-adjusted market value of the goods and services produced by an economy in a financial year. 1. Statisticians conventionally measure such growth as the percent rate of increase in the real and nominal gross domestic product, GDP. 2. Growth is usually calculated in real terms, i.e., inflation-adjusted terms, to eliminate the distorting effect of inflation on the prices of goods produced. Measurement of economic growth uses national income accounting. 3. Since economic growth is measured as the annual percent change of gross domestic product, GDP, it has all the advantages and drawbacks of that measure. The economic growth rates of countries are commonly compared using the ratio of the GDP to population or per capita income. 4. The rate of economic growth refers to the geometric annual rate of growth in GDP between the first and the last year over a period of time. This growth rate represents the trend in the average level of GDP over the period, and ignores any fluctuations in the GDP around this trend. Economists refer to economic growth caused by more efficient use of inputs, increased productivity of labor, of physical capital, of energy or of materials, as intensive growth. In contrast, GDP growth caused only by increases in the amount of inputs available for use, increased population, for example, or new territory, counts as extensive growth. 5. Development of new goods and services also generates economic growth. As it so happens, in the US about 60% of consumer spending in 2013 went on goods and services that did not exist in 1869. 6. Measurement, edit. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Real GDP growth rate 2023. The economic growth rate is typically calculated as real GDP growth rate, real GDP per capita growth rate or GNI per capita growth. Long-term growth, edit. Living standards vary widely from country to country. And furthermore, the change in living standards over time varies widely from country to country. Below is a table which shows GDP per person and annualized per person GDP growth for a selection of countries over a period of about 100 years. The GDP per person data are adjusted for inflation, hence they are real. GDP per person, more commonly called per capita GDP, is the GDP of the entire country divided by the number of people in the country. GDP per person is conceptually analogous to average income. Economic growth by country. 7. Country period. Real GDP per person at beginning of period. Real GDP per person at end of period. Annualized growth rate. Japan. 1890. 2008. $1,504, $35,220, 2.71%. Brazil. 1900. 2008. $779, $10,070, 2.40%. Mexico. 1900. 2008. $1,159, $14,270, 2.35%. Germany. 1870. 2008. $2,184, $35,940, 2.05%. Canada. 1870. 2008. $2,375, $36,220, 1.99%. China. 1900. 2008. $716, $6,020, 1.99%. United States. 1870. 2008. $4,007, $46,970, 1.80%. Argentina. 1900. 2008. $2,293, $14,020, 1.69%. United Kingdom. 1870. 2008. $4,808, $36,130, 1.47%. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. The system of economic growth in developed regions. India. 1900. 2008. $675, $2,960, 1.38%. Indonesia. 1900. 2008. $891, $3,830, 1.36%. Bangladesh. 1900. 2008. $623, $1,440, 0.78%. Seemingly small differences in yearly GDP growth lead to large changes in GDP when compounded over time. For instance, in the above table, GDP per person in the United Kingdom in the year 1870 was $4,808. At the same time in the United States, GDP per person was $4,007. Lower than the UK by about 20%. However, in 2008 the positions were reversed. GDP per person was $36,130 in the United Kingdom and $46,970 in the United States, i.e. GDP per person in the US was 30% more than it was in the UK. As the above table shows, this means that GDP per person grew, on average, by 1.80% per year in the US and by 1.47% in the UK. Thus, a difference in GDP growth by only a few tenths of a percent per year results in large differences in outcomes when the growth is persistent over a generation. This and other observations have led some economists to view GDP growth as the most important part of the field of macroeconomics. If we can learn about government policy options that have even small effects on long-term growth rates, we can contribute much more to improvements in standards of living than has been provided by the entire history of macroeconomic analysis of countercyclical policy and fine-tuning. Economic growth is the part of macroeconomics that really matters. 8. Growth and Innovation, edit. It has been observed that GDP growth is influenced by the size of the economy. The relation between GDP growth and GDP across the countries at a particular point of time is convex. Growth increases as GDP reaches its maximum and then begins to decline. There exists some extremum value. This is not exactly middle income trap. It is observed for both developed and developing economies. Actually, countries having this property belong to conventional growth domain. However, the extremum could be extended by technological and policy innovations, and some countries move into innovative growth domain with higher limiting values. 9. Determinants of per capita GDP growth, edit. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Historic world GDP per capita. In national income accounting, per capita output can be calculated using the following factors: output per unit of labor input, labor productivity, hours worked, intensity, the percentage of the working age, population actually working, participation rate, and the proportion of the working age population to the total population, demographics. The rate of change of GDP/population is the sum of the rates of change of these four variables plus their cross products. 10. Economists distinguish between long-run economic growth and short-run economic changes in production. Short-run variation in economic growth is termed the business cycle. Generally, according to economists, the ups and downs in the business cycle can be attributed to fluctuations in aggregate demand. In contrast, economic growth is concerned with the long-run trend in production due to structural causes such as technological growth and factor accumulation. Productivity, edit. Main article, Productivity Improving Technologies. Increases in labor productivity, the ratio of the value of output to labor input, have historically been the most important source of real per capita economic growth. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, in a famous estimate, MIT professor Robert Solow concluded that technological progress has accounted for 80% of the long-term rise in U.S. per capita income, with increased investment in capital explaining only the remaining 20%. 16. Increases in productivity lower the real cost of goods. Over the 20th century, the real price of many goods fell by over 90%. 17. Economic growth has traditionally been attributed to the accumulation of human and physical capital and the increase in productivity and creation of new goods arising from technological innovation. 18. Further division of labor, specialization, is also fundamental to rising productivity. 19. Before industrialization, technological progress resulted in an increase in the population, which was kept in check by food supply and other resources, which acted to limit per capita income, a condition known as the Malthusian trap. 20. 21. The rapid economic growth that occurred during the Industrial Revolution was remarkable because it was in excess of population growth, providing an escape from the Malthusian trap. 22. Countries that industrialized eventually saw their population growth slow down, a phenomenon known as the demographic transition. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Productivity lowered the cost of most items. In terms of work time required to purchase, real food prices fell due to improvements in transportation and trade, mechanized agriculture, fertilizers, scientific farming and the Green Revolution. Increases in productivity are the major factor responsible for per capita economic growth. This has been especially evident since the mid-19th century. Most of the economic growth in the 20th century was due to increased output per unit of labor, materials, energy, and land, less input per widget. The balance of the growth in output has come from using more inputs. Both of these changes increase output. The increased output included more of the same goods produced previously and new goods and services. 23. During the Industrial Revolution, mechanization began to replace hand methods in manufacturing, and new processes streamlined production of chemicals, iron, steel, and other products. 24. Machine tools made the economical production of metal parts possible, so that parts could be interchangeable. 25. See, interchangeable parts. During the Second Industrial Revolution, a major factor of productivity growth was the substitution of inanimate power for human and animal labor. Also there was a great increase in power as steam powered electricity generation and internal combustion supplanted limited wind and water power. 24. Since that replacement, the great expansion of total power was driven by continuous improvements in energy conversion efficiency. 26. Other major historical sources of productivity were automation, transportation infrastructures, canals, railroads, and highways. 27. 28. New materials, steel, and power, which includes steam and internal combustion engines and electricity. Other productivity improvements included mechanized agriculture and scientific agriculture including chemical, fertilizers and livestock and poultry management, and the Green Revolution. Interchangeable parts made with machine tools powered by electric motors evolved into mass production, which is universally used today. 25. Great sources of productivity improvement in the late 19th century were railroads, steamships, horse-pulled reapers and combine harvesters, and steam-powered factories. 29. 30. The invention of processes for making cheap steel were important for many forms of mechanization and transportation. By the late 19th century both prices and weekly work hours fell because less labor, materials, and energy were required to produce and transport goods. However, real wages rose, allowing workers to improve their diet, buy consumer goods and afford better housing. 29. Mass production of the 1920s created overproduction, which was arguably one of several causes of the Great Depression of the 1930s. 31. Following the Great Depression, economic growth resumed, aided in part by increased demand for Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Existing goods and services, such as automobiles, telephones, radios, electricity and household appliances. New goods and services included television, air conditioning and commercial aviation. After 1950, creating enough new demand to stabilize the work week. 32. The building of highway Infrastructures also contributed to post-World War II growth, as did capital investments in manufacturing and chemical industries. 33. The post-World War II economy also benefited from the discovery of vast amounts of oil around the world, particularly in the Middle East. By John W. Kendrick's estimate, 3/4 of increase in U.S. per capita GDP from 1889 to 1957 was due to increased productivity. 15. Economic growth in the United States slowed down after 1973. 34. In contrast, growth in Asia has been strong since then, starting with Japan and spreading to 4 Asian tigers: China, Southeast Asia, the Indian subcontinent and Asia-Pacific. 35. In 1957 South Korea had a lower per capita GDP than Ghana, 36, and by 2008 it was 17 times as high as Ghana's. 37. The Japanese economic growth has slackened considerably since the late 1980s. Productivity in the United States grew at an increasing rate throughout the 19th century and was most rapid in the early to middle decades of the 20th century. 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, U.S. productivity growth spiked towards the end of the century in 1996-2004, due to an acceleration in the rate of technological innovation known as Moore's Law. 43, 44, 45, 46. After 2004 U.S. productivity growth returned to the low levels of 1972-96. 43. Factor accumulation, edit. Capital in economics ordinarily refers to physical capital, which consists of structures, largest component of physical capital, and equipment used in business, machinery, factory equipment, computers and office equipment, construction equipment, business vehicles, medical equipment, etc. 3. Up to a point, increases in the amount of capital per worker are an important cause of economic output growth. Capital is subject to diminishing returns because of the amount that can be effectively invested and because of the growing burden of depreciation. In the development of economic theory, the distribution of income was considered to be between labor and the owners of land and capital. 47. In recent decades there have been several Asian countries with high rates of economic growth driven by capital investment. 48. The work week declined considerably over the 19th century. 49. 50. By the 1920s the average work week in the US was 49 hours, but the work week was reduced to 40 hours, after which overtime premium was applied, as part of the National Industrial Recovery Act of 1933. Demographic factors may influence growth by changing the employment to population ratio and the labor force participation rate. 11. Industrialization creates a demographic transition in which birth rates decline and the average age of the population increases. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Women with fewer children and better access to market employment tend to join the labor force in higher percentages. There is a reduced demand for child labor and children spend more years in school. The increase in the percentage of women in the labor force in the US contributed to economic growth, as did the entrance of the baby boomers into the workforce. 11. C. Spending wave. Other factors affecting growth, edit. Human capital, edit. Many theoretical and empirical analyses of economic growth attribute a major role to a country's level of human capital, defined as the skills of the population or the workforce. Human capital has been included in both neoclassical and endogenous growth models. 51, 52, 53. A country's level of human capital is difficult to measure since it is created at home, at school, and on the job. Economists have attempted to measure human capital using numerous proxies, including the population's level of literacy, its level of numeracy, its level of book production / capita, its average level of formal schooling, its average test score on international tests, and its cumulative depreciated investment in formal schooling. The most commonly used measure of human capital is the level, average years, of school attainment in a country, building upon the data development of Robert Barrow and Georges Whatley. 54. This measure is widely used because Barrow and Lee provide data for numerous countries in 5-year intervals for a long period of time. One problem with the schooling attainment measure is that the amount of human capital acquired in a year of schooling is not the same at all levels of schooling and is not the same in all countries. This measure also presumes that human capital is only developed in formal schooling, contrary to the extensive evidence that families, neighborhoods, peers, and health also contribute to the development of human capital. Despite these potential limitations, Theodore Breton has shown that this measure can represent human capital in log-linear growth models because across countries, GDP/adult has a log-linear relationship to average years of schooling, which is consistent with the log-linear relationship between workers' personal incomes and years of schooling in the Mincer model. 55. Eric Hanashek and Dennis Kimco introduced measures of students' mathematics and science skills from international assessments into growth analysis. 56. They found that this measure of human capital was very significantly related to economic growth. Eric Hanashek and Ludger Wassmann have extended this analysis. 57, 58. Theodore Breton shows that the correlation between economic growth and students' average test scores in Hanashek and Wassmann's analyses is actually due to the relationship in countries with less than 8 years of schooling. He shows that economic growth is not correlated with average scores in more educated countries. 55. Hanashek and Wassmann explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Economic growth rates. Percent, vertical, V standardized. Tests of student achievement in different regions, both adjusted for GDP per capita in 1960. Further investigate whether the relationship of knowledge capital to economic growth is causal. They show that the level of students' cognitive skills can explain the slow growth in Latin America and the rapid growth in East Asia. 59. Joe Ergbaten and Jan Lutten van Zanden employ book production per capita as a proxy for sophisticated literacy capabilities and find that countries with high levels of human capital formation in the 18th century initiated or participated in the industrialization process of the 19th century, whereas countries with low levels of human capital formation were unable to do so, among them many of today's less developed countries such as India, Indonesia, and China. 60. Health, edit. Here, health is approached as a functioning from Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum's capability approach that an individual has to realize the achievements like economic success. Thus health in a broader sense is not the absence of illness, but the opportunity for people to biologically develop to their full potential their entire lives. 61. It is established that human capital is an important asset for economic growth. However, it can only be so if that population is healthy and well-nourished. One of the most important aspects of health is the mortality rate and how the rise or decline can affect the labor supply predominant in a developing economy. 62. Mortality decline triggers greater investments in individual human capital and an increase in economic growth. Matteo Cervellati and Awesundi, 63, and Rodrigo Arsauz, 64, consider frameworks in which mortality decline has an influence on parents to have fewer children and to provide quality education for those children, as a result instituting an economic demographic transition. The relationship between health and economic growth is further nuanced by distinguishing the influence of specific diseases on GDP per capita from that of aggregate measures of health, such as life expectancy. 65. Thus, investing in health is warranted both from the growth and equity perspectives, given the important role played by health in the economy. Protecting health assets from the impact of systemic transitional costs on economic reforms, pandemics, economic crises, and natural disasters is also crucial. Protection from the shocks produced by illness and death are usually taken care of within a country's social insurance system. In areas such as sub-Saharan Africa, where the prevalence of HIV and AIDS has a comparative negative impact on economical development, it will be interesting to see how research in the areas of health in near future uncover how the world will be performing living with the SARS-CoV-2, especially looking at the economic impacts it already has in a space of 2 years. Ultimately, when people live longer on average, human capital expenditures are more likely to pay off, and all of these mechanisms center around. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. The complementarity of longevity, health, and education, for which there is ample empirical evidence. 65, 61, 63, 64, 62. Political institutions, edit. See also, Great Divergence Property Rights, Great Divergence Efficiency of Markets and State Intervention, and Great Divergence State Prohibition of New Technology. As institutions influence behavior and incentives in real life, they forge the success or failure of nations. 66. In economics and economic history, the transition from earlier economic systems to capitalism was facilitated by the adoption of government policies which fostered commerce and gave individuals more personal and economic freedom. These included new laws favorable to the establishment of business, including contract law, laws providing for the protection of private property, and the abolishment of anti-usury laws. 67, 68. Much of the literature on economic growth refers to the success story of the British state after the Glorious Revolution of 1688, in which high fiscal capacity combined with constraints on the power of the king generated some respect for the rule of law. 69, 70, 71, 66. However, others have questioned that this institutional formula is not so easily replicable elsewhere as a change in the constitution, and the type of institutions created by that change, does not necessarily create a Change in political power if the economic powers of that society are not aligned with the new set of rule of law institutions. 72. In England, a dramatic increase in the state's fiscal capacity followed the creation of constraints on the Crown, but elsewhere in Europe increases in state capacity happened before major rule of law reforms. 73. There are many different ways through which states achieved state, fiscal, capacity, and this different capacity accelerated or hindered their economic development. Thanks to the underlying homogeneity of its land and people, England was able to achieve a unified legal and fiscal system since the Middle Ages that enabled it to substantially increase the taxes it raised after 1689. 73. On the other hand, the French experience of state building faced much stronger resistance from local feudal powers, keeping it legally and fiscally fragmented until the French Revolution, despite significant increases in state capacity during the 17th century. 74, 75. Furthermore, Prussia and the Habsburg Empire, much more heterogeneous states than England, were able to increase state capacity during the 18th century without constraining the powers of the executive. 73. Nevertheless, it is unlikely that a country will generate institutions that respect property rights and the rule of law without having had first intermediate fiscal and political institutions that create incentives for elites to support them. Many of these intermediate-level institutions relied on informal private order arrangements that combined with public order institutions associated with states, to lay the foundations of modern rule of law states. 73. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. In many poor and developing countries, much land and housing are held outside the formal or legal property ownership registration system. In many urban areas, the poor invade private or government land to build their houses, so they do not hold title to these properties. Much unregistered property is held in informal form through various property associations and other arrangements. Reasons for extra-legal ownership include excessive bureaucratic red tape in buying property and building. In some countries, it can take over 200 steps and up to 14 years to build on government land. Other causes of extra-legal property are failures to notarize transaction documents or having documents notarized but failing to have them recorded with the official agency. 76. Not having clear legal title to property limits its potential to be used as collateral to secure loans, depriving many poor countries of one of their most important potential sources of capital. Unregistered businesses and lack of accepted accounting methods are other factors that limit potential capital. 76. Businesses and individuals participating in unreported business activity and owners of unregistered property face costs such as bribes and payoffs that offset much of any taxes avoided. 76. Democracy does cause growth, according to Acemoglu et al. Specifically, they state that democracy increases future GDP by encouraging investment, increasing schooling, inducing economic reforms, improving public goods provision, and reducing social unrest. 77. UNESCO and the United Nations also consider that cultural property protection, high-quality education, cultural diversity and social cohesion in armed conflicts are particularly necessary for qualitative growth. 78. According to Daron Acemoglu, Simon Johnson and James Robinson, the positive correlation between high income and cold climate is a byproduct of history. Europeans adopted very different colonization policies in different colonies, with different associated institutions. In places where these colonizers faced high mortality rates, for example, due to the presence of tropical diseases, they could not settle permanently, and they were thus more likely to establish extractive institutions, which persisted after independence. In places where they could settle permanently, for example those with temperate climates, they established institutions with this objective in mind and modeled them after those in their European homelands. In these neo-Europes, better institutions in turn produced better development outcomes. Thus, although other economists focus on the identity or type of legal system of the colonizers to explain institutions, these authors look at the environmental conditions in the colonies to explain institutions. For instance, former colonies have inherited corrupt governments and geopolitical boundaries, set by the colonizers, that are not properly placed regarding the geographical locations of different ethnic groups, creating internal disputes and conflicts that hinder development. In another example, societies that emerged in colonies without solid native populations established better property rights and incentives for long-term investment than those where native populations were large. 79. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. In Why Nations Fail, Acemoglu and Robinson said that the English in North America started by trying to repeat the success of the Spanish conquistadors in extracting wealth, especially gold and silver, from the countries they had conquered. This system repeatedly failed for the English. Their successes rested on giving land and a voice in the government to every male settler to incentivize productive labor. In Virginia it took 12 years and many deaths from starvation before the governor decided to try democracy. 80. Economic growth, its sustainability and its distribution remain central aspects of government policy. For example, the UK government recognises that government can play an important role in supporting economic growth by helping to level the playing field through the way it buys public goods, works and services. 81, and post-pandemic economic growth has been featured in a series of inquiries undertaken by the Parliamentary Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Committee, which argues that the UK government has a big job to do in helping businesses survive, stimulating economic growth and encouraging the creation of well-paid meaningful jobs. 82. Democracy and Economic Growth, edit. This section is an excerpt from Democracy and Economic Growth. Edit. Democracy and economic growth and development have had a strong correlative and interactive relationship throughout history. While evidence of this relationship's existence is irrefutable, 83. Economists' and historians' opinions of its exact nature have been sharply split, hence the latter has been the subject of many debates and studies. Entrepreneurs and New Products, edit. Policymakers and scholars frequently emphasize the importance of entrepreneurship for economic growth. However, surprisingly few research empirically examine and quantify entrepreneurship's impact on growth. This is due to endogeneity. Forces that drive economic growth also drive entrepreneurship. In other words, the empirical analysis of the impact of entrepreneurship on Growth is difficult because of the joint determination of entrepreneurship and economic growth. A few papers use quasi-experimental designs, and have found that entrepreneurship and the density of small businesses indeed have a causal impact on regional growth. 85. Another major cause of economic growth is the introduction of new products and services and the improvement of existing products. New products create demand, which is necessary to offset the decline in employment that occurs through labor-saving technology, and to a lesser extent, employment declines due to savings in energy and materials. 86. In the US by 2013 about 60% of consumer spending was for goods and services that did not exist in 1869. Also, the creation of new services has been more important than invention of new goods. 87. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Structural change, edit. Main article, Rostow's Stages of Growth. Economic growth in the US and other developed countries went through phases that affected growth through changes in the labor force participation rate and the relative sizes of economic sectors. The transition from an agricultural economy to manufacturing increased the size of the sector with high output per hour, the high productivity manufacturing sector, while reducing the size of the sector with lower output per hour, the lower productivity agricultural sector. Eventually, high productivity growth in manufacturing reduced the sector size, as prices fell and employment shrank relative to other sectors. 89. The service and government sectors, where output per hour and productivity growth is low, saw increases in their shares of the economy and employment during the 1990s. 11. The public sector has since contracted, while the service economy expanded. In the 2000s, the structural change could also be viewed from another angle. It is possible to divide real economic growth into two components: an indicator of extensive economic growth, the quantitative GDP, and an indicator of the improvement of the quality of goods and services, the qualitative GDP. 90. Growth theories, edit. Adam Smith, edit. Adam Smith pioneered modern economic growth and performance theory in his book The Wealth of Nations, first published in 1776. For Smith, the main factors of economic growth are division of labor and capital accumulation. However, these are conditioned by what he calls the extent of the market. This is conditioned notably by geographic factors but also institutional ones such as the political legal environment. 91. Malthusian theory, edit. Main article, Malthusianism. Malthusianism is the idea that population growth is potentially exponential while the growth of the food supply or other resources is linear, which eventually reduces living standards to the point of triggering a population die-off. The Malthusian theory also proposes that over most of human history, technological progress caused larger population growth but had no impact on income per capita in the long run. According to the theory, while technologically advanced economies over this epoch were characterized by higher population density, their level of income per capita was not different from those among technologically regressed society. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. The conceptual foundations of the Malthusian theory were formed by Thomas Malthus, 92, and a modern representation of these approaches provided by Ashraf and Gaylor, 93, in line with the predictions of the Malthusian theory. A cross-country analysis finds a significant positive effect of the technological level on population density and an insignificant effect on income per capita. Significantly over the years 1500. 93. Classical growth theory, edit. In classical, Ricardian, economics, the theory of production and the theory of growth are based on the theory of sustainability and law of variable proportions, whereby increasing either of the factors of production, labor or capital, while holding the other constant and assuming no technological change, will increase output, but at a diminishing rate that eventually will approach zero. These concepts have their origins in Thomas Malthus's theorizing about agriculture. Malthus's examples included the number of seeds harvested relative to the number of seeds planted, capital, on a plot of land and the size of the harvest from a plot of land versus the number of workers employed. 94. See also diminishing returns. Criticisms of classical growth theory are that technology, an important factor in economic growth, is held constant and that economies of scale are ignored. 95. One popular theory in the 1940s was the Big Push model, which suggested that countries needed to jump from one stage of development to another through a virtuous cycle, in which large investments in infrastructure and education coupled with private investments would move the economy to a more productive stage, breaking free from economic paradigms appropriate to a lower productivity stage. 96. The idea was revived and formulated rigorously, in the late 1980s by Kevin Murphy, Andrei Schleifer and Robert Vishny. 97. Solo Swan Model, edit. Main article, Solo Swan Model. Robert Solow and Trevor Swan developed what eventually became the main model used in growth economics in the 1950s. 98, 99. This model assumes that there are diminishing returns to capital and labor. Capital accumulates through investment, but its level or stock continually decreases due to depreciation. Due to the diminishing returns to capital, with increases in capital /worker and absent technological progress, economic output /worker eventually reaches a point where capital per worker and economic output /worker remain constant because annual investment in capital equals annual depreciation. This condition is called the steady state. In the Solo Swan model, if productivity increases through technological progress, then output /worker increases even when the economy is in the steady state. If productivity increases at a constant rate, output /worker also increases at a related steady-state rate. As a consequence, explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Growth in the model can occur either by increasing the share of GDP invested or through technological progress. But at whatever share of GDP invested, capital /worker eventually converges on the steady state, leaving the growth rate of output /worker determined only by the rate of technological progress. As a consequence, with world technology available to all and progressing at a constant rate, all countries have the same steady-state rate of growth. Each country has a different level of GDP /worker determined by the share of GDP it invests, but all countries have the same rate of economic growth. Implicitly in this model, rich countries are those that have invested a high share of GDP for a long time. Poor countries can become rich by increasing the share of GDP they invest. One important prediction of the model, mostly borne out by the data, is that of conditional convergence, the idea that poor countries will grow faster and catch up with rich countries as long as they have similar investment and saving rates and access to the same technology. The solo swan model is considered an exogenous growth model because it does not explain why countries invest different shares of GDP in capital nor why technology improves over time. Instead, the rate of investment and the rate of technological progress are exogenous. The value of the model is that it predicts the pattern of economic growth once these two rates are specified. Its failure to explain the determinants of these rates is one of its limitations. Although the rate of investment in the model is exogenous, under certain conditions the model implicitly predicts convergence in the rates of investment across countries. In a global economy with a global financial capital market, financial capital flows to the countries with the highest return on investment. In the solo swan model, countries with less capital /worker, poor countries, have a higher return on investment due to the diminishing returns to capital. As a consequence, capital /worker and output /worker in a global financial capital market should converge to the same level in all countries. 100. Since historically financial capital has not flowed to the countries with less capital /worker, the basic solo swan model has a conceptual flaw. Beginning in the 1990s, this flaw has been addressed by adding additional variables to the model that can explain why some countries are less productive than others and, therefore, do not attract flows of global financial capital even though they have less physical capital /worker. In practice, convergence was rarely achieved. In 1957, Solow applied his model to data from the U.S. gross national product to estimate contributions. This showed that the increase in capital and labor stock only accounted for about half of the output, while the population increase adjustments to capital explained eighth. This remaining unaccounted growth output is known as the Solow residual. Here the A of T, technical progress, was the reason for increased output. Nevertheless, the model still had flaws. It gave no room for policy to influence the growth rate. Few attempts were also made by the Rand Corporation, the non-profit think tank and frequently visiting economist Kenneth Arrow, to work out the kinks in the model. They suggested that new knowledge was indivisible and that it is endogenous with a certain fixed cost. Arrows further explained that new Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Knowledge obtained by firms comes from practice and built a model that knowledge accumulated through experience. 101. According to Harrod, the natural growth rate is the maximum rate of growth allowed by the increase of variables like population growth, technological improvement and growth in natural resources. In fact, the natural growth rate is the highest attainable growth rate which would bring about the fullest possible employment of the resources existing in the economy. Endogenous Growth Theory, edit. Main article, Endogenous Growth Theory. Unsatisfied with the assumption of exogenous technological progress in the solo swan model, Economists worked to endogenize, i.e., explain it from within the models, productivity growth in the 1980s. The resulting endogenous growth theory, most notably advanced by Robert Lucas, Jr. and his student Paul Romer, includes a mathematical explanation of technological advancement. 102. This model was notable for its incorporation of human capital, which is interpreted from changes to investment patterns in education, training, and healthcare by private sector firms or governments. Notwithstanding the implications this component has for policy, the endogenous perspective on human capital investment emphasizes the possibility for broad-based effects which can be realized by other firms in the economy. Accordingly, human capital is theorized to deliver increasing rates of return unlike physical capital. Research done in this area has focused on what increases human capital, for example education, or technological change, for example innovation. 103. The quantity theory of endogenous productivity growth was proposed by Russian economist Vladimir Pakrovsky. It explains growth as a consequence of the dynamics of three factors, including the technological characteristics of production equipment. Without any arbitrary parameters, historical rates of economic growth can be predicted with considerable precision. 104, 105, 106. On Memorial Day weekend in 1988, a conference in Buffalo brought together influential thinkers to evaluate the conflicting theories of growth. Romer, Krugman, Barrow, and Becker were in attendance, along with many other high-profile economists of the time. Amongst many papers that day, the one that stood out was Romer's Micro Foundations for Aggregate Technological Change. The Micro Foundation claimed that endogenous technological change had the concept of intellectual property embedded and that knowledge is an input and output of production. Romer argued that outcomes to the national growth rates were significantly affected by public policy, trade activity, and intellectual property. He stressed that cumulative capital and specialization were key, and that not only population growth can increase capital of knowledge, it was human capital that is specifically trained in harvesting new ideas. 107. While intellectual property may be important, Baker, 2016, cites multiple sources claiming that stronger patent protection seems to be associated with slower growth. That's particularly true for Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Patents in the ethical healthcare industry. In effect, taxpayers pay twice for new drugs and diagnostic procedures, first in tax subsidies and second for the high prices of diagnostic procedures treatments. If the results of research paid by taxpayers were placed in the public domain, Baker claims that people everywhere would be healthier, because better diagnoses and treatment would be more affordable the world over. 108. One branch of endogenous growth theory was developed on the foundations of the Schumpeterian theory, named after the 20th century Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter. 109. The approach explains growth as a consequence of innovation and a process of creative destruction that captures the dual nature of technological progress. In terms of creation, entrepreneurs introduce new products or processes in the hope that they will enjoy temporary monopoly-like profits as they capture markets. In doing so, they make old technologies or products obsolete. This can be seen as an annulment of previous technologies, which makes them obsolete, and destroys the rents generated by previous innovations. 110, 855, 111, a major model that illustrates Schumpeterian growth is the Aghian-Howitt model, RU 112, 110. Unified Growth Theory, edit. Main article, Unified Growth Theory. Unified growth theory was developed by Oettgeiler and his co-authors to address the inability of endogenous growth theory to explain key empirical regularities in the growth processes of individual economies and the world economy as a whole. 113, 114, unlike endogenous growth theory that focuses entirely on the modern growth regime and is therefore unable to explain the roots of inequality across nations, unified growth theory captures in a single framework the fundamental phases of the process of development in the course of human history, i.e., the Malthusian epoch that was prevalent over most of human history, 2. The escape from the Malthusian trap, 3. The emergence of human capital as a central element in the growth process, 4. The onset of the fertility decline, v. The origins of the modern era of sustained economic growth, and 6. The roots of divergence in income per capita across nations in the past 2 centuries. The theory suggests that during most of human existence, technological progress was offset by population growth, and living standards were near subsistence across time and space. However, the reinforcing interaction between the rate of technological progress and the size and composition of the population has gradually increased the pace of technological progress, enhancing the importance of education in the ability of individuals to adapt to the changing technological environment. The rise in the allocation of resources towards education triggered a fertility decline, enabling economies to allocate a larger share of the fruits of technological progress to a steady increase in income per capita, rather than towards the growth of population, paving the way for the emergence of sustained economic growth. The theory further suggests that variations in biogeographical characteristics, as well as cultural and institutional characteristics, have generated a differential pace of transition from Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF stagnation to growth across countries and consequently divergence in their income per capita over the past 2 centuries. 113, 114. Inequality and growth, edit. Theories, edit. Further information, economic inequality and effects of economic inequality. The prevailing views about the role of inequality in the growth process has radically shifted in the past century. 115. The classical perspective, as expressed by Adam Smith and others, suggests that inequality fosters the growth process. 116, 117, specifically, since the aggregate saving increases with inequality due to higher property to save among the wealthy, the classical viewpoint suggests that inequality stimulates capital accumulation and therefore economic growth. 118. The neoclassical perspective that is based on representative agent approach denies the role of inequality in the growth process. It suggests that while the growth process may affect inequality, income distribution has no impact on the growth process. The modern perspective which has emerged in the late 1980s suggests in contrast, that income distribution has a significant impact on the growth process. The modern perspective, originated by Gala and Zara, 119, 120, highlights the important role of heterogeneity in the determination of aggregate economic activity and economic growth. In particular, Gala and Zara argue that since credit markets are imperfect, inequality has an enduring impact on human capital formation, the level of income per capita, and the growth process. 121, in contrast to the classical paradigm, which underlined the positive implications of inequality for capital formation and economic growth, Gala and Zara argue that inequality has an adverse effect on human capital formation and the development process, in all but the very poor economies. Later theoretical developments have reinforced the view that inequality has an adverse effect on the growth process. Specifically, Elisina and Roderick and Persson and Tabolini advance a political economy mechanism and argue that inequality has a negative impact on economic development, since it creates a pressure for distortionary redistributive policies that have an adverse effect on investment and economic growth. 122, 123. In accordance with the credit market imperfection approach, a study by Roberto Perotti showed that inequality is associated with lower level of human capital formation, education, experience, apprenticeship, and higher level of fertility, while lower level of human capital is associated with lower growth and lower levels of economic growth. In contrast, his examination of the political economy channel found no support for the political economy mechanism. 124. Consequently, the Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF political economy perspective on the relationship between inequality and growth have been revised, and later studies have established that inequality may provide an incentive for the elite to block redistributive policies and institutional changes. In particular, inequality in the distribution of land ownership provides the landed elite with an incentive to limit the mobility of rural workers by depriving them from education and by blocking the development of the industrial sector. 125. A unified theory of inequality and growth that captures that changing role of inequality in the growth process offers a reconciliation between the conflicting predictions of classical viewpoint that maintained that inequality is beneficial for growth and the modern viewpoint that suggests that in the presence of credit market imperfections, inequality predominantly results in underinvestment in human capital and lower economic growth. This unified theory of inequality and growth, developed by Oettgeiler and Omermove, 126, suggests that the effect of inequality on the growth process has been reversed as human capital has replaced physical capital as the main engine of economic growth. In the initial phases of industrialization, when physical capital accumulation was the dominating source of economic growth, inequality boosted the development process by directing resources toward individuals with higher propensity to save. However, in later phases, as human capital become the main engine of economic growth, more equal distribution of income, in the presence of credit constraints, stimulated investment in human capital and economic growth. In 2013, French economist Thomas Piketty postulated that in periods when the average annual rate on return on investment in capital, R, exceeds the average annual growth in economic output, G, the rate of inequality will increase. 127. According to Piketty, this is the case because wealth that is already held or inherited, which is expected to grow at the rate R, will grow at a rate faster than wealth accumulated through labor, which is more closely tied to G. An advocate of reducing inequality levels, Piketty suggests levying a global wealth tax in order to reduce the divergence in wealth caused by inequality. Evidence, reduced form, edit. The reduced form empirical relationship between inequality and growth was studied by Alberto Alicina and Danny Roderick, and Torsten Persson and Guido Tabolini. 122, 123, they find that inequality is negatively associated with economic growth in a cross-country analysis. Robert Barrow re-examined the reduced form relationship between inequality on economic growth in a panel of countries. 128, he argues that there is little overall relation between income inequality and rates of growth and investment. However, his empirical strategy limits its applicability to the understanding of the relationship between inequality and growth for several reasons. First, his regression analysis control for education, fertility, investment, and it therefore excludes, by construction, the important effect of inequality on growth via education, fertility, and investment. His findings simply imply that inequality has no direct effect on growth beyond the important indirect effects through the main channels proposed in the literature. Second, his study analyzes the effect. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF of inequality on the average growth rate in the following 10 years. However, existing theories suggest that the effect of inequality will be observed much later, as is the case in human capital formation, for instance. Third, the empirical analysis does not account for biases that are generated by reverse causality and omitted variables. Recent papers based on superior data find negative relationship between inequality and growth. Andrew Berg and Jonathan Ostry of the International Monetary Fund find that lower net inequality is robustly correlated with faster and more durable growth, controlling for the level of redistribution. 129. Likewise, Dirk Herter and Sebastian Vollmer find that increased income inequality reduces economic growth. 130. Evidence, mechanisms, edit. The Gayler and Zayras model predicts that the effect of rising inequality on GDP per capita is negative in relatively rich countries but positive in poor countries. 119, 120, these testable predictions have been examined and confirmed empirically in recent studies. 131, 132, in particular, Bruckner and Lederman test the prediction of the model by in the panel of countries during the period 1970-2010, by considering the impact of the interaction between the level of income inequality and the initial level of GDP per capita. In line with the predictions of the model, they find that at the 25th percentile of initial income in the world sample, a 1 percentage point increase in the Gini coefficient increases income per capita by 2.3%, whereas at the 75th percentile of initial income a 1 percentage point increase in the Gini coefficient decreases income per capita by -5.3%. Moreover, the proposed human capital mechanism that mediates the effect of inequality on growth in the Gayler-Zayras model is also confirmed. Increases in income inequality increase human capital in poor countries but reduce it in high and middle income countries. This recent support for the predictions of the Gales-era model is in line with earlier findings. Roberto Perotti showed that in accordance with the credit market imperfection approach, developed by Gale and Zara, inequality is associated with lower level of human capital formation, education, experience, apprenticeship, and higher level of fertility, while lower level of human capital is associated with lower levels of economic growth. 124. Princeton economist Roland Benabaus finds that the growth process of Korea and the Philippines are broadly consistent with the credit constrained human capital accumulation hypothesis. 133. In addition, Andrew Berg and Jonathan Ostry, 129, suggest that inequality seems to affect growth through human capital accumulation and fertility channels. In contrast, Perotti argues that the political economy mechanism is not supported empirically. Inequality is associated with lower redistribution, and lower redistribution, underinvestment in education and infrastructure, is associated with lower economic growth. 124. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Importance of long-run growth, edit. Over long periods of time, even small rates of growth, such as a 2% annual increase, have large effects. For example, the United Kingdom experienced a 1.97% average annual increase in its inflation-adjusted GDP between 1830 and 2008. 134. In 1830, the GDP was £41,373 million. It grew to £1,330,088 million by 2008. A growth rate that averaged 1.97% over 178 years. Resulted in a 32-fold increase in GDP by 2008. The large impact of a relatively small growth rate over a long period of time is due to the power of exponential growth. The rule of 72, a mathematical result, states that if something grows at the rate of X% per year, then its level will double every 72/X years. For example, a growth rate of 2.5% per annum leads to a doubling of the GDP within 28.8 years, whilst a growth rate of 8% per year leads to a doubling of GDP within 9 years. Thus, a small difference in economic growth rates between countries can result in very different standards of living for their populations if this small difference continues for many years. Quality of life, edit. One theory that relates economic growth with quality of life is the threshold hypothesis, which states that economic growth up to a point brings with it an increase in quality of life. But at that point, called the threshold point, further economic growth can bring with it a deterioration in quality of life. 135. This results in an upside-down U-shaped curve, where the vertex of the curve represents the level of growth that should be targeted. Happiness has been shown to increase with GDP per capita, at least up to a level of $15,000 per person. 136. Economic growth has the indirect potential to alleviate poverty, as a result of a simultaneous increase in employment opportunities and increased labor productivity. 137. A study by researchers at the Overseas Development Institute, ODI, of 24 countries that experienced growth found that in 18 cases, poverty was alleviated. 137. In some instances, quality of life factors such as healthcare outcomes and educational attainment, as well as social and political liberties, do not improve as economic growth occurs. 138. Dubious discuss. Productivity increases do not always lead to increased wages, as can be seen in the United States, where the gap between productivity and wages has been rising since the 1980s. 137. Equitable growth, edit. Main article, Inclusive growth. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. The marginal costs of a growing economy may gradually exceed the marginal benefits, however measured. While acknowledging the central role economic growth can potentially play in human development, poverty reduction and the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals, it is becoming widely understood amongst the development community that special efforts must be made to ensure poorer sections of society are able to participate in economic growth. 139, 140, 141, the effect of economic growth on poverty reduction. The growth elasticity of poverty can depend on the existing level of inequality. 142, 143, for instance, with low inequality, a country with a growth rate of 2% per head and 40% of its population living in poverty, can halve poverty in 10 years, but a country with high inequality would take nearly 60 years to achieve the same reduction. 144, 145, in the words of the Secretary-General of the United Nations Ban Ki-moon, while economic growth is necessary, it is not sufficient for progress on reducing poverty. 139. Environmental impact, edit. See also, the limits to growth and overconsumption. Critics such as the Club of Rome argue that a narrow view of economic growth, combined with globalization, is creating a scenario where we could see a systemic collapse of our planet's natural resources. 146, 147. Concerns about negative environmental effects of growth have prompted some people to advocate lower levels of growth, or the abandoning of growth altogether. In academia, concepts like uneconomic growth, steady-state economy, eco-taxes, green investments, basic income guarantees, along with more radical approaches associated with degrowth, commoning, eco-socialism and eco-anarchism have been developed in order to achieve this and to overcome possible growth imperatives. 148, 149, 150, 151, in politics, Green parties embrace the Global Greens Charter, recognizing that the dogma of economic growth at any cost and the excessive and wasteful use of natural resources without considering Earth's carrying capacity, are causing extreme deterioration in the environment and a massive extinction of species. 152. 2. The 2019 Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services published by the United Nations Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services warned that given the substantial loss of biodiversity, society should not focus solely on economic growth. 153, 154, anthropologist Eduardo S. Brondizio, one of the co-chairs of the report, said we need to change our narratives. Both our individual narratives that associate wasteful consumption with quality of life and with status, and the narratives of the economic systems that still consider that environmental degradation and social inequality are inevitable outcomes of economic growth. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Economic growth is a means and not an end. We need to look for the quality of life of the planet. 155. Those more optimistic about the environmental impacts of growth believe that, though localized environmental effects may occur, large-scale ecological effects are minor. The argument, as posited by commentator Julian Lincoln Simon, stated in 1981 that if these global-scale ecological effects exist, human ingenuity will find ways to adapt to them. 156. Conversely, Partha Dasgupta, in a 2021 report on the economics of biodiversity commissioned by the British Treasury, argued that biodiversity is collapsing faster than at any time in human history as a result of the demands of contemporary human civilization, which far exceed nature's capacity to supply us with the goods and services we all rely on. We would require 1.6 Earths to maintain the world's current living standards. He says that major transformative changes will be needed akin to, or even greater than, those of the Marshall Plan, including abandoning GDP as a measure of economic success and societal progress. 157. Philip Cafaro, professor of philosophy at the School of Global Environmental Sustainability at Colorado State University, wrote in 2022 that a scientific consensus has emerged which demonstrates that humanity is on the precipice of unleashing a major extinction event, and that the cause of global biodiversity loss is clear: other species are being displaced by a rapidly growing human economy. 158. In 2019, a warning on climate change signed by 11,000 scientists from over 150 nations said, economic growth is the driving force behind the excessive extraction of materials and overexploitation of ecosystems, and that this must be quickly curtailed to maintain long-term sustainability of the biosphere. They add that our goals need to shift from GDP growth and the pursuit of affluence towards sustaining ecosystems and improving human well-being by prioritizing basic needs and reducing inequality. 159, 160. A 2021 paper authored by top scientists in Frontiers in Conservation Science posited that given the environmental crises including biodiversity loss and climate change, and possible ghastly future facing humanity, there must be fundamental changes to global capitalism, including the abolition of perpetual economic growth. 161, 162, 163. Global warming, edit. See also, Economics of Global Warming. Up to the present, there is a close correlation between economic growth and the rate of carbon dioxide emissions across nations, although there is also a considerable divergence in carbon intensity, carbon emissions per GDP. 164. Up to the present, there is also a direct relation between global economic wealth and the rate of global emissions. 165. The Stern Review notes that the prediction that, under business as usual, global emissions will be sufficient to propel greenhouse gas concentrations to over 550 ppm co. 2. By 2050 and over 650-700 ppm by the end of this century, is robust to a wide range of changes in model assumptions. The scientific consensus is that explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Planetary ecosystem functioning without incurring dangerous risks requires stabilization at 455-50 ppm. 166. As a consequence, growth-oriented environmental economists propose government intervention into switching sources of energy production, favoring wind, solar, hydroelectric, and nuclear. This would largely confine use of fossil fuels to either domestic cooking needs, such as for kerosene burners, or where carbon capture and storage technology can be cost-effective and reliable. 167. The Stern Review, published by the United Kingdom government in 2006, concluded that an investment of 1% of GDP, later changed to 2%, would be sufficient to avoid the worst effects of climate change, and that failure to do so could risk climate-related costs equal to 20% of GDP. Because carbon capture and storage are as yet widely unproven, and its long-term effectiveness, such as in containing carbon dioxide leaks, unknown, and because of current costs of alternative fuels, these policy responses largely rest on faith of technological change. British Conservative politician and journalist Nigel Lawson has deemed carbon emission trading an inefficient system of rationing. Instead, he favours carbon taxes to make full use of the efficiency of the market. However, in order to avoid the migration of energy-intensive industries, the whole world should impose such a tax, not just Britain, Lawson pointed out. There is no point in taking the lead if nobody follows suit. 168. Resource constraint, edit. See also, energy returned on energy invested, substitute good, mining, peak minerals, and steady-state economy present situation, exceeding global limits to growth. Many earlier predictions of resource depletion, such as Thomas Malthus' 1798 predictions about approaching famines in Europe, the population bomb, 169, 170, and the Simon-Ehrlich wager, 1980, 171, have not materialized. Diminished production of most resources has not occurred so far. One reason being that advancements in technology and science have allowed some previously unavailable resources to be produced. 171, in some cases, substitution of more abundant materials, such as plastics for cast metals, lowered growth of usage for some metals. In the case of the limited resource of land, famine was relieved firstly by the revolution in transportation caused by railroads and steamships, and later by the Green Revolution and chemical fertilizers, especially the Haber process for ammonia synthesis. 172, 173. Resource quality is composed of a variety of factors including ore grades, location, altitude above or below sea level, proximity to railroads, highways, water supply and climate. These factors affect the capital and operating cost of extracting resources. In the case of minerals, lower grades of mineral resources are being extracted, requiring higher inputs of capital and energy for both extraction and processing. Copper ore grades have declined significantly over the last century. 174, 175. Another example is natural gas from shale and other low permeability rock, whose extraction requires much higher inputs of energy, capital, and materials than conventional gas in. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Previous decades. Offshore oil and gas have exponentially increased cost as water depth increases. Some physical scientists like Sanyam Mittal regard continuous economic growth as unsustainable. 176, 177. Several factors may constrain economic growth, for example, finite, peaked, or depleted resources. In 1972, the Limits to Growth study modeled limitations to infinite growth, originally ridiculed. 169, 170, 178. Some of the predicted trends have materialized, raising concerns of an impending collapse or decline due to resource constraints. 179, 180, 181. Malthusians such as William R. Catton, Jr. are skeptical of technological advances that improve resource availability. Such advances and increases in efficiency, they suggest, merely accelerate the drawing down of finite resources. Catton claims that increasing rates of resource extraction are stealing ravenously from the future. 182. Energy, edit. Further information on energy role in economy, econodynamics. Further information on energy efficiency, productivity improving technologies, historical energy efficiency. Energy economic theories hold that rates of energy consumption and energy efficiency are linked causally to economic growth. The Garrett relation holds that there has been a fixed relationship between current rates of global energy consumption and the historical accumulation of world GDP, independent of the year considered. It follows that economic growth, as represented by GDP growth, requires higher rates of energy consumption growth. Seemingly paradoxically, these are sustained through increases in energy efficiency. 183. Increases in energy efficiency were a portion of the increase in total factor productivity. 15. Some of the most technologically important innovations in history involved increases in energy efficiency. These include the great improvements in efficiency of conversion of heat to work, the reuse of heat, the reduction in friction, and the transmission of power, especially through electrification. 184, 185. There is a strong correlation between per capita electricity consumption and economic development. 186, 187. Possibility of infinite economic growth, edit. Ecological economics criticizes the possibility of infinite economic growth on a finite planet. Current economic models ignore physical constraints and thus suggest the economy can grow continuously as a perpetual motion machine. However, according to the laws of thermodynamics, perpetual motion machines do not exist. 188. Thus, no system can continue without inputs of new energy that explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. The economic system as a subsystem of the environment. Natural resources flow through the economy and end up as waste and pollution. Exit as high entropy waste. Just as no animal can live on its own waste, no economy can recycle the waste it produces without the input of new energy to reproduce itself. 188. Matter and energy enter the economy in the form of low entropy natural capital, such as solar energy, oil wells, fisheries, and mines. These materials and energy are used by households and firms alike to create products and wealth. After the materials are used up, the energy and matter leaves the economy in the form of high entropy waste that is no longer valuable to the economy. The natural materials that power the motion of the economic system from the environment, and the waste must be absorbed by the larger ecosystem in which the economy exists. 189. It cannot be ignored that the economy intrinsically requires natural resources and the creation of waste that must be absorbed in some manner. The economy can only continue churning if it has matter and energy to power it and the ability to absorb the waste it creates. This matter and low entropy energy and the ability to absorb waste exists in a finite amount, and thus there is a finite amount of inputs to the flow and outputs of the flow that the environment can handle, implying there is a sustainable limit to motion, and therefore growth, of the economy. 188. The limits to growth states that, due to those limits caused by thermodynamical laws, the availability of resources will decrease in a context of everlasting growth, leading to the increase of the prices of those resources, therefore to a decrease of the investment in industry. This decrease of industry will eventually lead to scarcity of goods and services that could eventually lead to a decrease of the living conditions and an increase of death rates all over the world. 190. See also, edit. Agrowth. American exceptionalism. Civilizing mission. Climate change. Critique of political economy. Degrowth. Development theory. Economic development. Export-oriented industrialization. Greed. Green growth. Green New Deal. Growth accounting. Hindu rate of growth. The limits to growth. List of countries by real GDP growth rate. Manifest destiny. Orthodox development. Post-growth. Productivism. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Progress. Propaganda. Prosperity without growth. Status quo. Sufficiency economy. Sustainability. Sustainable development. Thermoeconomics. Uneconomic growth. Unified growth theory. Universal basic income. Wealth redistribution. The white man's burden. World view. References, edit. 1 Rosa, Max, 2021. What is economic growth? And why is it so important? Our World in Data. 2 Statistics on the growth of the global gross domestic product, GDP, from 2003 to 2013. Archived 3 May, 2013 at the Wayback Machine, IMF, October 2012. Gross domestic product, also called GDP, is the market value of goods and services produced by a country in a certain time period. 3 AB Bjork 1999, p. 251. 4 Bjork 1999, p. 67. 5 Bjork 1999, pp. 2, 67. 6 Gordon, Robert J. The 29th of August, 2017. The Rise and Fall of American Growth, the U.S. Standard of Living Since the Civil War. Princeton University Press. pp. 38-39. ISBN 978-0-691-17580-5. 7 Mankey, Gregory, 2011. Principles of Macroeconomics, 6th ed. Cengage Learning. p. 236. ISBN 978-0538453066. 8 Barrow, Robert, Sala I. Martin, Xavier, 2004. Economic Growth, 2nd ed. p. 6. Asin B003Q7 Wera. 9 Das, Tuhin K. 2019. Cross-sectional views of GDP growth in the light of innovations. Economic Growth e-Journal. Do 10.2001-39/SSRN.3503386. S2 SID 219383124. SSRN 3503386. 10 Bjork 1999, p. 68. 11 ABCD Bjork 1999, p. Page needed. 12 Rubini, Nuriel, Bacchus, David, 1998. Productivity and Growth. Lectures in Macroeconomics. 13 Wang, Ping, 2014. Growth Accounting, PDF. p2. Archived from the original, PDF, on 2014. 07-15. 14 Corey, Dan, Valero, Anna, Van Reenen, John, November 2011. UK Economic Performance Since 1997, PDF. The UK's high GDP per capita growth was driven by strong growth in productivity. GDP per hour, which was second only to the US. 15 ABC Kendrick, John W. 1961. Productivity Trends in the United States, PDF. Princeton University Press Farnborough. p3. 16 Krugman, Paul, 1994. The Myth of Asia's Miracle. Foreign Affairs. 73, 662-78. Do 10.200307/20046929. JSTA 20046929. 17 Rosenberg, Nathan, 1982. Inside the Black Box, Technology and Economics. Cambridge, New York, Cambridge University Press. p. 258. ISBN 978-0-521-27367-1. 18 A.B. Lucas, R.E. 1988. On the Mechanics of Economic Development. Journal of Monetary Economics. 22, 1342 do. 10.1016/0304-3932, 88, 90168-7. S2 SID 1548757771. 19 Reisman, George, 1998. Capitalism, A Complete Understanding of the Nature and Value of Human Economic Life. Jameson Books. ISBN 0-915463-73-3. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 20-Carat Gala, Ode, 2005. From Stagnation to Growth, Unified Growth Theory. Handbook of Economic Growth. Volume 1. Elsevier. pp. 171293. 21-Carat Clark 2007, p. Page needed, Part I, The Malthusian Trap. 22-Carat Clark 2007, p. Page needed, Part 2, The Industrial Revolution. 23-Carat Kendrick, J.W. 1961 Productivity Trends in the United States, archived 4 March 2019 at the Wayback Machine, Princeton University Press. 24-Carat A.B. Lands, David. S. 1969. The Unbound Prometheus, Technological Change and Industrial Development in Western Europe from 1750 to the present. Cambridge, New York, Press Syndicative. The University of Cambridge. ISBN 978-0-521-09418-4. 25-Carat A.B. Hounshell, David A. 1984, From the American System to Mass Production, 1800–1932, The Development of Manufacturing Technology in the United States, Baltimore, Maryland, Johns Hopkins University Press, ISBN 978-0-8018-2975-8, LCCN 83016269, OCLC 1104810110. 26-Carat S. Robert U. Watt, Benjamin, June, 2005. Accounting for Growth, The Role of Physical Work. Structural Change and Economic Dynamics. 16, 21812009. Site CX10.1.1.1085.9040. Do. 10.1016/j.struco.2003.10.003. Retrieved 9 August 2022. 27-Carat Grubbler, Arnulf, 1990. The Rise and Fall of Infrastructures, PDF. Archived from the original PDF, on 1 March 2012. Retrieved 1 February 2011. 28-Carat Taylor, George Rogers, 1951. The Transportation Revolution, 1815–1860. Reinhardt. ISBN 978-0873321013. 29-Carat A.B. Wells, David A. 1890. Recent Economic Changes and Their Effect on Production and Distribution of Wealth and Well-Being of Society. New York, D. Appleton and Company. ISBN 978-0543724748. 30-Carat Attack, Jeremy, Parcel, Peter, 1994. A New Economic View of American History. New York, W.W. Norton and Company. ISBN 978-0-393-96315-1. 31-Carat Baudrillard, Bernard C. 1996. Mass Production, The Stock Market Crash and the Great Depression. New York, Lincoln, Shanghai, Author's Choice Press. 32-Carat Moore, Stephen, Simon, Julian, 15 December 1999. The Greatest Century That Ever Was, 25. Miraculous Trends of the Last 100 Years, PDF. Policy Analysis, 364. The Cato Institute. Diffusion. Curves for various innovations start at Fig. 14. 33 Field, Alexander J. 2011. A Great Leap Forward, 1930s Depression and U.S. Economic Growth. New Haven, London, Yale University Press. ISBN 978-0-300-15109-1. 34 St. Louis Federal Reserve archived 13 April 2015 at the Wayback Machine. Real GDP per capita in the U.S. rose from $17,747 in 1960 to $26,281 in 1973 for a growth rate of 3.07%/YR. Calculation 26,281/17,747, 1/13. From 1973 to 2007 the growth rate was 1.089%. Calculation 49,571/26,281, 1/34. From 2000 to 2011 average annual growth was 0.64%. 35 Semiconductor foundry market, 2019 global industry trends, growth, share, size and 2021 forecast research report. Market Watch. The 28th of November, 2019. Archived from the original on 2019. 12 to 20. Retrieved the 20th of December, 2019. 36 leading article, Africa has to spend carefully. Archived the 24th of January, 2012 at the Wayback Machine. The Independent. The 13th of July, 2006. 37 data refer to the year 2008. $26,341 GDP for Korea, $1,513 for Ghana. World Economic Outlook. Database October 2008. International Monetary Fund. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 38 Kendrick, John, 1991. U.S. Productivity Performance in Perspective, Business Economics, October 1, 1991. Business Economics. 26, 4711. JSTOR 234858828. 39 Field, Alexander J. 2007. U.S. Economic Growth in the Gilded Age, PDF. Journal of Macroeconomics. 31, 173190. Do. 10.1016/j.macro.2007.08008. S2 SID 1548482228. Archived from the original PDF on the 8th of January 2016. Retrieved the 12th of July 2014. 40 Field, Alexander, 2004. Technological Change and Economic Growth, the Interwar Years and the 1990s. The Journal of Economic History. 66, 12032362, 10.103322/S00220507060000088. Inactive the 28th of July 2024. S2 SID 154757050, SSRN 11056344. 41 Gordon, Robert J. June, 2000. Interpreting the One Big Wave in U.S. Long-Term Productivity Growth. NBER Working Paper Number 7752. Do. 10.3386/W7752. 42 Abramovitz, Moses, David, Paulo. 2000. 2 Centuries of American Macroeconomic Growth from Exploitation of Resource Abundance to Knowledge-Driven Development, PDF. Stanford University. pp. 24-5, PDF pp 28-9. Archived from the original, PDF, on 31 July 2020. Retrieved 13 July 2014. 43 A.B. Gordon, Robert J. Spring 2013. U.S. Productivity Growth, the slowdown has returned after a temporary revival, PDF. International Productivity Monitor, Center for the Study of Living Standards. 25, 13-9. Archived from the original, PDF, on 9 August 2014. Retrieved 19 July 2014. The U.S. economy achieved a growth rate of labor productivity of 2.48% per year for 81 years. Followed by 24 years of 1.32%, then a temporary recovery back to 2.48%, and a final slowdown to 1.35%. The similarity of the growth rates in 1891-1972 with 1996-2004, and of 1972-96 with 1996-2011 is quite remarkable. 44 A.B. Dale W. Jorgensen, Mun S. Ho, John D. Samuels, 12 May 2014. Long-term estimates of U.S. productivity and growth, PDF. WorldComs Conference. Wikidata Q1114555533. 45 Dale W. Jorgensen, Mun S. Ho, Kevin J. Styro, 2008. A retrospective look at the U.S. productivity growth resurgence. Journal of Economic Perspectives. 22, 1324 do. 10.1257/JEP.22.1.3. 46 Bruce T. Grimm, Brent R. Moulton, David B. Washausen, 2002. Information Processing Equipment and Software in the National Accounts, PDF. U.S. Department of Commerce Bureau of Economic Analysis. Retrieved 15 May 2014. 47 Hunt, E.K. Lordson-Heiser, Mark, 2014. History of Economic Thought, A Critical Perspective. Phi. Learning. ISBN 978-0765625991. 48 Krugman, Paul, 1994. The Myth of Asia's Miracle. Foreign Affairs. 73, 662-78. Do. 10.2307/20046929. JSTA 20046929. 49 Hours of Work in U.S. History. 2010. Archived from the original on 26 October 2011. 50 Whipples, Robert, June 1991. The Shortening of the American Work Week, An Economic and Historical Analysis of its Context, Causes, and Consequences. The Journal of Economic History. 51. 24547 do. 10.1022205070039073 S2 SID 1538134337. 51 Mankey, N. Gregory, Roma, David, Weil, David, 1992. A Contribution to the Empirics of Economic Growth. Quarterly Journal of Economics. 107, 240737. Site CX 10.1.1.335.6159. Do. 10.2307/21184777. JSTA 21184777. S2 SID 13699978. 52 Sala I. Martin, Xavier, Doppelhofer, Janot, Miller, Ronald I. 2004. Determinants of Long-Term Growth, a Bayesian Averaging of Classical Estimates, Bayes, Approach, PDF. American Economic Review. 94, 481335 do. 10.100028280420025770. S2 SID 5571066. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 53 Roma, Paul, 1990. Human Capital and Growth, Theory and Evidence, PDF. Carnegie. Rochester Conference Series on Public Policy. 32, 25186. Do. 10.1016/0167-2231, 90, 90028J. S2 SID 15491089. 54 Barrow, Robert J. Lee, Georges Watt, 2001. International Data on Educational Attainment, Updates and Implications, PDF. Oxford Economic Papers. 53, 354163 do. 10.1093/ep/53.3.541. S2 SID 3081974. 55 A. B. Breton, Theodore R. 2015. Higher test scores or more schooling. Another look at the causes of economic growth, PDF. Journal of Human Capital. 9, 223926 do. 10.1086/681911. HDL 10784/2644. S2 SID 1400693337. 56 Hanashek, Erica. Kimco, Dennis D. 2000. Schooling, Labor Force Quality, and the Growth of Nations. American Economic Review. 90, 51184-208. Site CX 10.1.1.232.7942. Do. 10.1257/air.90.5.1184. 57 Hanashek, Erica. Woseman, Ludger, 2008. The Role of Cognitive Skills in Economic Development. Journal of Economic Literature. 46, 360768. Site CX 10.1.1.507.5325. Do 10.1202/gel.46.3.607. 58 Hannah Sheck, Erica. Wosman, Ludger, 2011. How much do educational outcomes matter in OECD countries? PDF. Economic Policy. 26, 67 427 91 do 10.1111/J.1468. 0327.2011.00265.x. S2 SID 77335555. 59 Hannah Sheck, Eric, Wosman, Ludger, 2015. The Knowledge Capital of Nations, Education and the Economics of Growth. MIT Press. ISBN 978-0-262-02917-9. 60 Baton, Joerg, Van Zanden, Jan Lutten, 2008. Book Production and the Onset of Modern Economic Growth. Journal of Economic Growth. 13, 3217235 do 10.1007/008-9031-9. HDL 10230/757. S2 SID 1953148001. 61 AB Lustig, Nora, 2006. Investing in Health for Economic Development, The Case of Mexico, PDF. Wider Research Paper, 2006/30. Helsinki, The United Nations University World Institute for Development Economics Research. ISBN 929190797. 62 AB Bloom, David, Canning, David, Graham, Brian, 2003. Longevity and Life Cycle Savings. The Scandinavian Journal of Economics. 105, 3319338 do 10.1467/9442.T01-1-00001. S2 SID 11960778. 63 AB Servalati, Matteo, Sundi, Awet, 2005. Human Capital Formation, Life Expectancy, and the Process of Development. American Economic Review. 95, 1653 1672. Do 10.100228280577501430. PMID 29125727. 64 AB Soares, Rodrigo R. 2005. Mortality Reductions, Educational Attainment, and Fertility Choice. American Economic Review. 95, 358601 do 10.1202828054201486. PMID 29125724. 65 AB Bloom, David, Kuhn, Michael, Prittner, Klaus, 2018. Health and Economic Growth. SSRN 33016888. 66 AB Acemoglu and Robinson 2012, p. 43. 67 Hunt, E.K. Lordson-Heiser, Mark, 2014. History of Economic Thought, A Critical Perspective. Phi. Learning. ISBN 978-0765625991. 68 Lands, David. S. 1969. The Unbound Prometheus, Technological Change and Industrial Development in Western Europe from 1750 to the Present. Cambridge, New York, Press Syndicate of The University of Cambridge. pp. 818. ISBN 978-0-521-09418-4. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 69 North, Douglas C. Wingast, Barry, 1989. Constitutions and Commitment, The Evolutions of Institutions Governing Public Choice in 17th-Century England. Journal of Economic History. 49. 480332 do. 10.1000.10.1020500700094551. S2 SID 3198200. 70 Barker, J.H. 1995. Personal Liberty under Common Law of England, 1200-1600. In Davis, R. W. ed. The Origins of Modern Freedom in the West. Stanford, Stanford University Press. pp. 178. 202. ISBN 978-0-8047-2474-6. 71 Ace McGlue, Daron, Johnson, Simon, Robinson, James O. 2005. Institutions as a Fundamental Cause of Long-Run Growth. In Aguillon, Philippe, Derloff, Stephen, eds. Handbook of Economic Growth. Volume 1, Pater Elsevier. pp. 385472. do. 10.1016/1574-0684 05 01006-3. ISBN 9780444520418. 72 Rudgen, R. Zingales, L. 2003. Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists. New York, Random House. ISBN 978-0-7126-2131-1. 73 ABCD Johnson, Noel D. Koyama, Mark, 2017. States and Economic Growth, Capacity and Constraints. Explorations in Economic History. 64, 120. do. 10.1016/J.E.2016.11.002. 74 Johnson, Noel D. 2006. Banking on the King, The Evolution of the Royal Revenue Farms in Old Regime France. Journal of Economic History. 66, 4963991 do. 10.1017/S00220507060000398. S2 SID 73630821. 75 Johnson, Noel D. Koyama, Mark, 2014. Tax Farming and the Origins of State Capacity in England and France. Explorations in Economic History. 51, 122, 10.1000.j.e.2013.07.005. 76 ABC de Soto, Hernando, 2000. The Mystery of Capital, Why Capitalism Triumphs in the West and Fails Everywhere Else. Basic Books. ISBN 978-0465016143. 77 Acemoglu, Daron, Niju, Suresh, Restrepo, Pascual, Robinson, James A. March 2014. Democracy Does Cause Growth. NBA Working Paper Number 20004. Do. 10.3386/W2004. 78 Geohose Culture, at the Heart of SDGs, USCO Curia, April-June 2017. 79 Acemoglu, Daron, Johnson, Simon, Robinson, James A. 2001. The Colonial Origins of Comparative Development, an Empirical Investigation. American Economic Review. 91, 1369-401. Cite CX 10.1.1.313.7172. Do. 10.1257/air.91.5.1369. 80 Acemoglu and Robinson 2012, p. 26. 81 Crown Commercial Service, Procuring Growth, Balanced Scorecard, published October 2016. Accessed 17 April 2024. 82 Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Committee, Post-Pandemic Economic Growth Super Inquiry. Launched by BIS Committee, published 3 June 2020, accessed 17 April 2024. 83 http://www.columbia.edu/fl/9//democracy_governance_growth.pdf. 84 Lee, Yong-suk, the 28th of July 2016. Entrepreneurship, Small Businesses and Economic Growth in Cities. PDF. Journal of Economic Geography. 17, 231143 do. 10.1093/jeg/lbw021. 85 Lee, Yong-suk, 2018. Government Guaranteed Small Business Loans and Regional Growth. Journal of Business Venturing. 33, 7083. Do. 10.1016/j.jbusvent.2017.11.001. S2 SID 168857205. 86 Es, Robert, 1989. Technological Transformations and Long Waves, PDF. Vienna, Austria. Novographic. P9. ISBN 3-7045-0092-5. Archived from the original, PDF, on 16 July 2011. Attributed to Mensk, who described new products as demand-creating. 87 Gordon, Robert J. 2016. The Rise and Fall of American Growth. Princeton, NJ, Princeton University Press. p. 39. ISBN 978-0-691-14772-7. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 88. Manufacturing's declining share of GDP is a global phenomenon, and it's something to celebrate. U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Archived from the original on the 20th of April, 2021. Retrieved the 26th of June, 2014. 89. All employees, manufacturing. January 1939. 90. Kupriyanov, Aleki, the 30th of April, 2018. Decomposition of GDP. The role of quality of goods and services in measuring economic growth. SSRN 31700839. 91. Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, 1776. Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations, a translation into modern English, ISR Publications, 2015. 92. Malthus, Thomas R. 1798. Gilbert, Geoffrey, ed. An Essay on the Principle of Population. Oxford. Oxford University Press, published 1999. 93. A. B. Quamral, Ashraf, Gala, Ode, 2011. Dynamics and Stagnation in the Malthusian Epoch. American Economic Review. 101, 5 2003 2041 do. 10.1257/air.101.5.2003. PMC 4262154. PMID 255060882. 94. Bjork 1999, pp. 297298. 95. Bjork 1999, p. 298. 96. Paul Rosenstein Rodin, Specify. 97. Murphy, Kevin M. Schleifer, Andrei, Vishny, Robert W. 1989. Industrialization and the Big Push. Journal of Political Economy. 97, 5 1003 1026. Site CX 10.1.1.538.3040. Do. 10.1086/261641. S2 SID 2224242224. 98. Solow, Robert M. 1956. A Contribution to the Theory of Economic Growth. Quarterly Journal of Economics. 70, 165/94 do. 10.2307/1884513 HDL. 10338.dmlcz/143862. JSTA 1884513. 99. Swan, Trevor W. 1956. Economic Growth and Capital Accumulation. Economic Record. 32, 2. 33461. Do. 10.101432.1956.tb00434.x. 100. Lucas, Robert E. 1990. Why doesn't capital flow from rich to poor countries? American Economic Review. 80, 292-6. JSTA 2006549. 101. Walsh, David. Knowledge and the Wealth of Nations. W.W. Norton and Company 2006. 102 Roma, Paul, 1986. Increasing Returns and Long-Run Growth. Journal of Political Economy. 94. 5 1002 1037. Site CX10.1.1.589.3348. Do 10.1086/2614220. S2 SID 68180002. 103 Helpman, Elhana, 2004. The Mystery of Economic Growth. Harvard University Press. ISBN 978 0-674-01572-2. 104 Pakrovsky, V.N. 2003. Energy in the Theory of Production. Energy 28, 769-788. 105 Pakrovsky, V.N. 2007, Productive Energy in the U.S. Economy, Energy 32, 5, 816-822. 106 Pakrovsky, Vladimir, 2021. Social Resources in the Theory of Economic Growth. The Complex Systems, 332-43. 107 Warsh, David. Knowledge and the Wealth of Nations, A Story of Economic Discovery. W.W. Norton and Company, 2006. 108 Dean Baker, 2016, Rigged, How Globalization and the Rules to the Modern Economy Were Structured. To Make the Rich Richer, Center for Economic and Policy Research, Wikidata Q1002160001. 109 Landreth, Harry, 1976. History of Economic Theory, Scope, Method, and Content. Boston. Houghton Mifflin. pp. 478-480. ISBN 978-0-395-19234-4. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 110 A.B. Agian, Philippe, 2002. Schumpeterian Growth Theory and the Dynamics of Income Inequality. Econometrica. 70, 385582. Site CX10.1.1.458.7383. Do 10.1011/1468-0262.00312. S2 SID 12688535. 111 Also C. Carlin, Wendy, Soskis, David, 2006. Endogenous and Schumpeterian Growth. Macroeconomics, Imperfections, Institutions and Policies. Oxford University Press. pp. 52960. ISBN 978-0-19-877622-2. 112 Agian, Philippe, Howitt, Peter, 1992. A Model of Growth Through Creative Destruction. Econometrica. 60, 232351 do. 10.2307/2951599. JSTA 2951599. 113 A.B. Gaylor, Ode, 2011. Unified Growth Theory. Princeton, Princeton University Press. 114 A.B. Gaylor O. 2005, From Stagnation to Growth, Unified Growth Theory. Handbook of Economic Growth, Elsevier du. 10.15/S1554-0684-05-01004X. 115 Gala, Ode, 2011. Inequality, Human Capital Formation, and the Process of Development. Handbook of the Economics of Education. Elsevier. 116 Berg, Andrew G. Ostry, Jonathan D. 2011. Equality and Efficiency. Finance and Development. 48, 3. International Monetary Fund. Retrieved 13 July 2014. 117 Berg, Andrew, Ostry, Jonathan, 2017. Inequality and Unsustainable Growth, Two Sides of the Same Coin. IMF Economic Review. 65, 4792-815 10.1057/S41308-017-00308. S2 SID 130272448. 118 Caldor, Nichols, 1955. Alternative Theories of Distribution. Review of Economic Studies. 23, 283. 102, 10.2307/2296292. JSTA 2296292. 119 AB Gala, Ode, Zara, Joseph, 1993. Income Distribution and Macroeconomics. The Review of Economic Studies. 60, 135-52. Site CX 10.1.1.636.8225. Do. 10.2307/2297811. JSTA 2297811. 120 AB Gala, Ode, Zara, Joseph, 1988. Income Distribution and Investment in Human Capital. Macroeconomics Implications. Working Paper Number 197. Department of Economics, Hebrew University. 121 The World Bank Group, 1999. The Effect of Distribution on Growth, PDF. 122 AB Alicina, Alberto, Roderick, Danny, 1994. Distributive Politics and Economic Growth, PDF. Quarterly Journal of Economics. 109, 265-92, 10.2307/2118470. JSTA 2118470. 123 AB Person, Torsten, Tabolini, Guido, 1994. Is inequality harmful for growth? American Economic Review. 84, 3621. JSTA 2118070. 124 ABC Perotti, Roberto, 1996. Growth, Income Distribution, and Democracy, What the Data Say. Journal of Economic Growth. 1, 214987 do. 10.1007/BF00138861. S2 SID 546703443. 125 Gala, Ode, Mauve, Omer, Vollrath, Dietrich, 2009. Inequality in Landownership, The Emergence of Human Capital Promoting Institutions, and the Great Divergence. Review of Economic Studies. 76. 114317 do. 10.1411.1467-937x.2008.00506.x. PMC 3740999. PMID 239465551. 126 Gala, Ode, Mauve, Omar, 2004. From Physical to Human Capital Accumulation, Inequality and the Process of Development. Review of Economic Studies. 71, for 1001 1026. Cite CX 10.1.1.561.4168. Do. 10.11/0034-6527.00312. 127 Piketty, Thomas, 2014. Capital in the 21st Century. Brilliance Audio. ISBN 978-1491534656. 128 Barrow, Robert J. 2000. Inequality and Growth in a Panel of Countries. Journal of Economic Growth. 5, 1532 do. 10.1003/100985011939. S2 SID 20894006. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 129 A.B. Berg, Andrew, Ostry, Jonathan D. Tsangarides, Sharalambo G. Yox Shilikov, Your Ball, 2018. Redistribution, Inequality, and Growth, New Evidence. Journal of Economic Growth. 23, 3259-305. Do. 10.1007/017-017-9150-2. S2 SID 15889816-3. 130 Herter, Dirk, Vollmer, Sebastian, 2013. Rising Top Incomes Do Not Raise the Tide. Journal of Policy Modeling. 35, 450419 do. 10.1016/j.chpmid.2013.02.011. 131 Bruckner, Marcus, Lederman, Daniel, 2015. Effects of Income Inequality on Economic Growth. Vox SEPA Policy Portal. 132 Bruckner, Marcus, Lederman, Daniel, 2018. Inequality and Economic Growth, The Role of Initial Income. Journal of Economic Growth. 23, 334136 do. 10.1007/S1087-018-9156-4. HDL 10986/29896. S2 SID 55619830. 133 Bienebaugh, Roland, 1996. Inequality and Growth. The Macroeconomics Annual. 11/1192. Do. 10.1086/6544291. S2 SID 1541452668. 134 Ryland Thomas, Samuel H. Williamson, 2022. What was the UK GDP then? Measuring worth. 135 Manfred Max Neef, November 1995. Economic Growth and Quality of Life, a Threshold Hypothesis. Ecological Economics. 15, 211518. Site CX 10.1.1.321.4576. Do 10.1016/0921. 8009, 95, 00064X. ISSN 0921-8009. Wikidata Q560322205. 136 In Pursuit of Happiness Research. Is it reliable? What does it imply for policy? Archived 2011. 02-19 at the Wayback Machine, the Cato Institute. The 11th of April, 2007. 137 ABC Claire Melamed, Renate Hartwig and Ursula Grant 2011. Jobs, Growth and Poverty, What Do We Know, What Don't We Know, What Should We Know? Archived the 18th of September, 2012 at the Wayback Machine. London, Overseas Development Institute. 138 Dres, Jean, Sen, Amateur, 2013. An Uncertain Glory, India and Its Contradictions. Princeton. Princeton University Press. ISBN 9781400848775. 139 AB Claire Melamed, Kate Higgins and Andy Sumner, 2010, Economic Growth and the MDGs. Archived the 17th of July, 2011 at the Wayback Machine, Overseas Development Institute. 140 Anand, Rahul, et al. The 17th of August, 2013. Inclusive Growth Revisited, Measurement and Evolution. voxeu.org. Center for Economic Policy Research. Retrieved the 13th of January, 2015. 141 Anand, Rahul, et al. May 2013. Inclusive Growth, Measurement and Determinants, PDF. IMF. Working Paper. Asia Pacific Department, International Monetary Fund. Retrieved the 13th of January, 2015. 142 Ranieri, Rafael, Ramos, Raquel Almeida, March 2013. Inclusive Growth, Building Up a Concept. PDF. Working Paper. Brazil, International Policy Center for Inclusive Growth. ISSN 1812-108X. Retrieved the 13th of January, 2015. 143 Bourguignon, François, February 2002. Growth Elasticity of Poverty Reduction, Explaining Heterogeneity Across Countries and Time Periods. Forthcoming in T. Eichler and S. Ternovsky, eds. Growth and Inequality, MIT Press, PDF. S2 SID 1574390. Archived from the original, PDF, on the 30th of March, 2004. 144 Trevelyan, M. 2007, Inequality is Bad for the Poor in S. Jenkins and J. Michael Wright, eds. Inequality and Poverty Re-examined, Oxford University Press, Oxford. 145 Elena Iunchavishina and Susanna Lundström, 2009. Inclusive Growth Analytics, Framework and Application, archived the 11th of November, 2014 at the Wayback Machine, Policy Research Working Paper. Series 4851, The World Bank. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 146 Donella H. Meadows, George N. Randus, Dennis L. Meadows. Limits to Growth, the 30-year update. White River Junction, Vermont, Chelsea Green, 2004. 147 Alan Schneiberg, 1980, The Environment, From Surplus to Scarcity, Oxford University Press. Wikidata Q11145038. 148 Wiedemann, Thomas, Lenzen, Manfred, Kieser, Lorenz T. Steinberger, Julia K. 2020. Scientists. Warning on Affluence. Nature Communications. 11, 3107 3107. Bibcode, 2020 Natco 11.3107W. Do. 10.1038/S41467-020-16941Y. PMC 7305220. PMID 32561753. 149 Hickel, Jason, Callis, Jorgos, Jackson, Tim, Anil, Daniel W. Sco, Juliet B. It al. The 12th of December, 2022. Degrowth can work. Here's how science can help. Nature. 612, 7940-403. Bibcode, 2022 Nature.612400H. Do. 10.1038/D41586-022-04412X. PMID 365100013. S2 SID 2546145532. 150 Smith, E.T. The 23rd of January, 2024. Practicing Commoning. The Commons Social Change Library. Retrieved the 24th of February, 2024. 151 Nelson, Anitra, the 31st of January, 2024. Degrowth as a Concept and Practice, Introduction. The Commons Social Change Library. Retrieved the 24th of February, 2024. 152 Charter of the Global Greens, PDF. Global Greens. Dhaka. 2012. Archived from the original. PDF contains full charter, on the 17th of October, 2020. Retrieved the 23rd of February, 2024. 153 1 million species at risk of extinction, UN report warns. National Geographic. The 6th of May, 2019. Archived from the original on the 6th of May, 2019. Retrieved the 18th of May, 2019. 154 World must undergo huge social and financial transformation to save future of human life, major. Report finds. The Independent. The 6th of May, 2019. Retrieved the 18th of May, 2019. 155 Mackenzie, A.D. The 7th of May, 2019. Loss of biodiversity puts current and future generations at risk. Interpress Service. Retrieved the 18th of May, 2019. 156 The Ultimate Resource, Julian Simon, 1981. 157 Carrington, Damien, the 2nd of February, 2021. Economics of Biodiversity Review, What are the recommendations? The Guardian. Retrieved the 8th of February, 2021. 158 Cafaro, Philip, 2022. Reducing human numbers and the size of our economies is necessary to avoid a mass extinction and share Earth justly with other species. Philosophia. 55 2263 2282. Do 10.1007/11406-022-00497W. S2 SID 247433264. 159 Ripple, William J., Wolfe, Christopher, Newsom, Thomas M., Bened, Phoebe, Mumor, William R., 5. November 2019. World Scientists Warning of a Climate Emergency. Bioscience. 70, 812. Do 10.1093/biosci/biz088. HDL 1808/30278. Retrieved the 8th of November 2019. 160 Carrington, Damien, the 5th of November 2019. Climate Crisis, 11,000 Scientists Warn of Untold Suffering. The Guardian. Retrieved the 8th of November 2019. 161 Weston, Phoebe, the 13th of January 2021. Top scientists warn of ghastly future of mass extinction and climate disruption. The Guardian. Retrieved the 21st of January 2021. 162 Bradshaw, Corey J. Ehrlich, Paul R. Beatty, Andrew, Ceballos, Gerardo, Christ, Eileen, Diamond, Joan, Dirtso, Rodolfo, Ehrlich, Ann H. Hart, John, Hart, Mary Ellen, Pike, Graham, Raven, Peter H. Ripple, William J. Salter, Frederick, Turnbull, Christine, Wackenagel, Mathis, Blumstein, Daniel T. 2021. Underestimating the challenges of avoiding a ghastly future. Frontiers in Conservation. Science. 1 do 10.3389/FCOC.2020.6155419. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 163 Spector, Brandon, the 15th of January 2021. The planet is dying faster than we thought. Life Science. Retrieved the 21st of January 2021. 164 Stern Review, Part 3 Stabilization. Table 7.1 p. 168. 165 Garrett, T.J. 2009. Are there basic physical constraints on future anthropogenic emissions of carbon dioxide? Climatic change. 104. 34437 R14, 0811.1855 do 10.1007/S10584-009-9717. 9. S2 SID 5287353. 166 Stern Review Economics of Climate Change. Part 3 Stabilization p. 183. 167 Jacquard, M. 2005. Sustainable Fossil Fuels. New York, Cambridge University Press. ISBN 978-0. 521-67979-4. 168 Examination of Witnesses, Questions 32-39. 16 May, 2007. Retrieved 29 November, 2007. 169 AB Chapter 17, Growth and Productivity, the Long-Run Possibilities. Oswego.edu 10 June, 1999. Archived from the original on 18 December, 2010. Retrieved 22 December, 2010. 170 AB Bailey, Ronald, 4 February, 2004. Science and Public Policy. Reason.com. Retrieved the 22nd of December, 2010. 171 AB Regis, ed. The Doomslayer. Wired. Archived from the original on 16 May, 2008. 172 Wells, David A. 1891. Recent Economic Changes and Their Effect on Production and Distribution of Wealth and Well-Being of Society. New York, D. Appleton and Company. ISBN 978-0-543-72474-8. Opening line of the preface. 173 Smil, Vaclav, 2004. Enriching the Earth, Fritz Haber, Karl Bosch, and the Transformation of World Food Production. MIT Press. ISBN 978-0-262-69313-4. 174 Hall, Charles A. S., Cleveland, Cutler J. Kaufman, Robert, 1992. Energy and Resource Quality, The Ecology of the Economic Process. Niwo, Colorado, University Press of Colorado. 175 Leon, Christoa, 3 July 2015. Declining South America copper ore grades require ingenuity. Mining Weekly. 176 Bartlett, Albert Allen, 2013. Arithmetic, Population and Energy. albartlett.org. Retrieved the 22nd of July, 2014. You cannot sustain population growth and / or growth in the rates of consumption of resources. 177 Murphy, Tom, 12 July, 2011. Galactic Scale Energy. Do the Math. Retrieved the 22nd of July, 2014. Continued growth in energy use becomes physically impossible within conceivable time frames. All economic growth must similarly end. 178 Hayward, Stephen F. That Old-Time Religion. AEI. Archived from the original on 18 April, 2009. Retrieved the 22nd of December, 2010. 179 Turner, Graham, June, 2008. A Comparison of the Limits of Growth with 30 Years of Reality. PDF. Socioeconomics and the Environment in Discussion. CSIRO Working Paper Series. ISSN 1834-5638. Archived from the original PDF on the 28th of November 2010. Retrieved the 20th of October 2010. 180 Carrot Hall, C. Day, J. 2009. Revisiting the Limits to Growth After Peak Oil. American Scientist. 97, 3. 23238. Do. 10.1511/2009.78.230. 181 Carrot Meadows, D.H., Randus, 2004. Limits to Growth, the 30-year update. Chelsea Green Publishing. ISBN 978-1-931498-58-6. 182 Carrot Overshoot by William Catton, P3, 1980. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 183 Carrot Garrett, T.J. 2014. Long-Run Evolution of the Global Economy, 1. Physical Basis. Earth's Future. 2. 3 127 R14, 1306.3554. Bibcode, 2014 EAFUT, 2127G. Do. 10.1002/2013 F000171. S2 SID 204937958. 184 Carrot Lands, David. S. 1969. The Unbound Prometheus, Technological Change and Industrial Development in Western Europe from 1750 to the present. Cambridge, New York, Press Syndicate of the University of Cambridge. pp. 289, 293. ISBN 978-0-521-09418-4. 185 Carrot Devine, Warren D. Jr. 1983. From Shafts to Wires, Historical Perspective on Electrification. Journal of Economic History. 43, 2347372, p. 355, do. 10.1017/S002205070002967 S2 SID 1534145525. 186 Carrot Committee on Electricity in Economic Growth Energy Engineering Board Commission on Engineering and Technical Systems National Research Council, 1986. Electricity in Economic Growth. Washington, D.C., National Academy Press. pp. 16, 40. ISBN 978-0-309-03677-1. 187 Carrot Peepk, C. Owen, 1992. The Evolution of Progress, the End of Economic Growth and the Beginning of Human Transformation. New York, Toronto, Random House. p. 109. ISBN 978-0-679. 41582-4. 188 Carrot ABC Daly, Herman E., and Joshua C. Farley. Ecological Economics, Principles and Applications. Washington, Island, 2011. Print. p. 29. 189 Carrot Daly, Herman E., and Joshua C. Farley. Ecological Economics, Principles and Applications. Washington, Island, 2011. Print. p. 29-34. 190 The Limits to Growth. Club of Rome. Retrieved 17 October 2022. Sources: Acemoglu, Daron, Robinson, James A. 2012. Why Nations Fail, The Origins of Power, Prosperity, and Poverty. Crown Business Division of Random House. ISBN 978-0-307-71922. 5. Jork, Gordon J. 1999. The Way It Worked and Why It Won't, Structural Change and the Slowdown of U.S. Economic Growth. Westport, CT, London, Prieger. ISBN 978-0-275-96532. 7. Clark, Gregory, 2007. A Farewell to Arms, A Brief Economic History of the World. Princeton University Press. ISBN 978-0-691-12135-2. Further reading, edit. Barrow, Robert J. 1996. Determinants of Economic Growth, a Cross-Country Empirical Study. Social Science Research Network. SSRN 3422. Cite Journal, Cite Journal. Requires Journal equals, help. Business and Economic Growth, Key Features and Determinants, Industrial Systems Research. Publications, Kindle edition, 2023. ISBN 9780906321829. Argyris, G., Fostata, M. and Mungiovi, G. eds. 2004, Growth, Distribution, and Effective Demand, Essays in Honor of Edward J. Nell. New York, M.E. Sharp. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Barrow, Robert J. 1997. Determinants of Economic Growth, a Cross-Country Empirical Study. MIT Press, Cambridge, Ma. Gaylor, O. 2005, From Stagnation to Growth, Unified Growth Theory. Handbook of Economic Growth, Elsevier. Halevi, Joseph, Leibman, David and Nell, Edward J. eds. 1992, Beyond the Steady State. Essays in the Revival of Growth Theory, edited with, London, UK. Hickel, Jason, 2020. Less is More, How Degrowth Will Save the World. Penguin Random House. ISBN 9781785152498. Jones, Charles I. 2002, Introduction to Economic Growth 2nd ed. W. W. Norton and Company. New York, N.Y. Lucas, Robert E., Jr. 2003, The Industrial Revolution, Past and Future, Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, Annual Report Online Edition. Pakrovsky E., Vladimir, 2018. Econodynamics. The Theory of Social Production. Springer. Dordrecht Heidelberg London New York. Schumpeter, Jos Beffer. 1912, The Theory of Economic Development 1982 reprint. Transaction Publishers. Weil, David N. 2008, Economic Growth 2nd ed. Addison Wesley. Gorodnichenko, Yuri, Roland, Gerard, 2011. Individualism, Innovation, and Long Run Growth. Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. 108, supplement _421316. 21319 bibcode, 2011 NAS 108211316G. Do. 10.1073/NAS.1101933108. PMC 3271573. PMID 22198759. Gorodnichenko, Yuri, Roland, Gerard, 2017. Culture, Institutions and the Wealth of Nations. The Review of Economics and Statistics. 99, 3402416 10.1162/rest_005999. S2 SID 2562715. Spoleor, Enrico, Wachug, Romain, 2013. How Deep Are the Roots of Economic Development? Journal of Economic Literature. 51, 2325369 do. 10.1257/gel.51.2.325. Mokia, Joel, 2016. A Culture of Growth, The Origins of the Modern Economy. Princeton. Princeton University Press. ISBN 9780691180960. McCloskey, Deirdre, 2016. Bourgeois Equality. How Ideas, Not Capital or Institutions, Enriched the World. Chicago, University of Chicago Press. ISBN 9780226527932. McCloskey, Deirdre, Carden, Art, 2020. Leave Me Alone and I'll Make You Rich, How the Bourgeois Deal Enriched the World. Chicago, University of Chicago Press. ISBN 9780226739663. Raworth, Kate, 2017. Donut Economics, 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. London, Random House. ISBN 978-1847941374. Weidman, Thomas, Lenzen, Manfred, Kieser, Lorenz T. Steinberger, Julia K. 2020. Scientists' Warning on Affluence. Nature Communications. 11, 13107. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Bibcode 2020 NATCO 11.3107W. Do. 10.1038/41467-020-16941Y. ISSN 2041-1723. PMC 7305220. PMID 325611753. Ruck, Damian J. Bentley, R. Alexander, Lawson, Daniel J. 2020. Cultural Prerequisites of Socio-Economic Development. Royal Society Open Science. 7, to 190,725. Bibcode 2020 ASOS 790725R. Do. 10.1098/ASOS.190725. PMC 7062048. PMID 3225730. Burgess, Matthew G. Carico, Amanda R. Gaines, Stephen D. Peary, Alessandro, van der Heijden. Steve, 2021. Prepare developed democracies for long-run economic slowdowns. Nature. Human behavior. 5. 12 1608 1621 do 10.1038/S41562-021-01229Y PMC 9026903 PMID 347954424 Pilling, David, 2019. The Growth Delusion, The Wealth and Well-Being of Nations. London. Bloomsbury Publishing. ISBN 9781408893746. External links, edit. Articles and lectures, edit. Economic Growth. Encyclopaedia Britannica. 2007. Encyclopaedia Britannica Online. 17. November 2007. Beyond Classical and Keynesian Macroeconomic Policy. Paul Romer's Plain English. Explanation of Endogenous Growth Theory. SEPA Economics Seminar Series archived the 11th of July 2010 at the Wayback Machine 2. Seminars on the Importance of Growth with economists Dean Baker and Mark Y. Brott. On Global Economic History by Jan Lutten van Zanden. Explores the idea of the inevitability of the Industrial Revolution. The Economist Has No Clothes essay by Robert Nadio in Scientific American on the basic assumptions behind current economic theory. World Growth Institute. An organization dedicated to helping the developing world realize its full potential via economic growth. Why does growth keep slowing down? St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank. Are there limits to economic growth? It's time to call time on a 50-year argument. Nature, 16. March 2022. Data, edit. Angus Madison's Historical Data Series for almost all countries on GDP, population, and GDP per capita from the year 0 up to 2003. OECD Economic Growth Statistics. Multinational data sets, easy-to-use data sets showing GDP, per capita and population, by country and region, 1970 to 2008. Updated regularly. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Categories: Economic growth, economic development, macroeconomic indicators. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF.